Peace, Black Power. Good evening. Welcome to the next episode of the Gospel of Cleasy. This is your boy D D Freezy, aka Cleasy Fashizi. Glad you all could. Well, I don't see anybody on, but um, if and when you view this, thank you for joining us tonight. Um, yeah, I don't have a whole lot, so I don't know that I'll go, a full hour, probably more like 30 minutes. I am still in the process of trying to remodel the studio, you know what I'm saying? And it's been a busy week, been a very good week for me and my family. So um, I want my back. Let others, in the family tell me when it's okay to talk about that. But yeah, getting into it. On the local front, I was honored to attend and be able to say a few words at a Stop the Violence rally here in Durham. On behalf of the Black Hoodie Brigade and the Black Liberation Action Committee, we were speaking. We had several city council members and some people from the county commissioners, at least one, that attended, and we were able to speak to them about the urgency that the community feels about violence affecting our young people in particular, and you know can't get my connection keeps going in and out. Okay, connection. Stay with if you're on Wi-Fi. Okay, going on with my connection. It shouldn't be. So, Okay. Apologies. I think I'm back. I was having some technical difficulties and things was going weird on me. And so I had to reboot. And so now I'm back. So try to pick up where I left off. I was at a Stop the Violence rally downtown Central Park, Durham. And like I was saying, I did get a chance to address the people, the attendees there, who are some of whom were members of the city council and the county commissioner's office. And basically what I said was, what you fund is what you prioritize. And what I meant was, um, we can find money, or the city can find money for all of these beautification measures, trees, um, colorful crosswalks, bike lanes, pickleball courts, dog parks, but they can't seem to wrap their heads around a solution or um, fund anything that speaks directly to the segment of the population that this violence most often affects, which is young Black males and females, and um, you know some victims as young as 3 and 4 years old. I think we had a recent case where a couple of recent cases where 3 and 4 year old children are being shot, and you know the point I was trying to make was, if it was happening at the rate that it happens to any other ethnic group, socioeconomic class, whatever you want to call it, it would be considered an epidemic. But because it by and large only affects this one um, small minority population, you know, you get half measures and platitudes and placation, and I don't think that's right. So I hope that my word, some people took heed to them, but I also reminded them that I asked them for things that in my opinion, and in the opinion of the Black Liberation Action Committee, speak directly to these issues. A few of which were, you know, working with the high tech companies that are operating in Durham to help uh, Black youth get these coding certifications and things and skills that you don't even need a degree for to make, close to six figures. It would be a beautiful thing if Durham, which was once known for Black Wall Street, could be known as the Black tech capital, the Black Silicon Valley, if you will. Uh, you know, it's not out of the realm of possibility if we would just reach out to the people that are doing business here. We have, to my knowledge, we have Google here, we have Meta here, we have Red Hat here, we have Oracle here. Those are all multinational corporations, and don't think it would be a heavy lift for them to come in on Saturday, every Saturday for however long it takes, and help, you know, a group of Black youth get certified so they can get jobs doing this tech stuff. That's where everything is moving. Everything is AI, deep think, and Chat GPT. Everything is going that way. So it would be a beautiful thing if Durham could be known as the place where, if you wanted, uh, if you're Black and you want to get involved in tech, this would be a great place to come. We already the city of Medicine. Why can't we add another moniker, or be known for something else, and help Black youth at the same time? Because, like I also said, if you want children that are involved in, or people that are involved in street activities or negative behaviors, to do something else, you have to give them something in its place. And like Bunny Colvin from The Wire said on one of my favorite shows, my favorite TV show of all time. In one episode, he said, if you want to neutralize a threat, you give it a job. So another thing I asked them to do was to create a summer jobs program for youth, in the spirit of the one created by former mayor of D.C., Marion Barry. I know he was a controversial figure. He was known for some of his more controversial acts. But one of the good things he did was that jobs program. The people in DC, to the best of my knowledge, still love that program, and it's still in effect today. And the thought there is, in the summertime when kids may not have, they may have more free time on their hands, you know, you keep them busy by giving them a job, and it does two things. It puts money in their pocket so they don't necessarily have to go and get involved in street activity to make some money. And the other thing it does is, if they work an 8-hour day, they may not have the energy to go out in the street at night and commit these acts. So I think it would be a good thing. And the other thing that I did not mention was that I asked the city to look into a reparations program in the way that Evanston, Illinois is doing around housing, because the cost of housing is very expensive here in the city. And we know housing is one of the ways that most people pull themselves out of poverty and into the middle class. And it's the way most people build wealth, and it protects you from rent, or it protects you from inflation, because once you got a mortgage, you kind of locked in. You don't have to worry about rent increases in the same way you do if you rent. So those are the things we're asking for from the city. We're going to continue to ask until we get an answer. I've asked more than one time. I emailed a letter to the city council. I hand delivered one copy to one city council member myself, and I to date have received no response. So we can stop it, or we can put a serious I'm having trouble streaming to Facebook. Okay. Go to my comments. Oh, I'm in my comments. Okay. I'm having some kind of Facebook's having problems streaming tonight for some reason, I think. But yeah. So that's on the local front. I was just looking at an article here in WRAL where they said there's been an overall drop in over the last 5 years. Stop that. It's been a drop in crime over the last 5 years. Significant drop in I can't talk. Property crimes, violent crime, including murder, rape, and robbery, is down 4% decrease. High rate of firearm incidents still remain. Goes on to say that the sheriff's office said 304 guns were seized in 2024, and 35 guns reported are lost or stolen. So just a reminder, I know this is North Carolina, and a lot of people carry firearms for their safety. I'm a proponent of the Second Amendment, 2A all day. That's me. But when you get out of your car, take your firearm with you, because that's how a lot of guns are getting on the street. That's how we assume. Brother Paul Scott made a point to point out that we've asked where the guns are coming from, and nobody can answer us. And there was an amendment, I think he said the Tahart Amendment, where it's illegal for the police to tell us where the guns come from. But I can't speak intelligently about it because I don't know that much about it. So follow Brother Paul Scott in the Black Hoodie Brigade, and he will fill you in. The Mayor Leonardo Williams, he said in his second State of the City address that he was going to address youth gun violence as a public health crisis. That sounds promising. I'm cautiously optimistic, and I hope that he is true to his word. I don't know him. I don't have an opinion on him. So, I don't know him personally, so I don't have an opinion. I don't personally like or dislike any politician. They're, in my opinion, a tool, just like a hammer or a screwdriver that you use when you need them to do something. And then when you don't, you put them back in the toolbox. So, I am critical as an activist. I'm going to push for my own interests, and it's not personal. So I may be critical, but it's never um, coming from a bad place, in my opinion. So I'll say that. So yeah, that's what's going on locally. So last week, the 28th, there was a lot of people say an economic boycott that was going to be organized by well, a lot of people saying it was organized by Al Sharpton. That black people would not spend any money on the 28th at all. A lot of people participated, uh, and a lot of people had comments on it. You know, on the naysayers were saying, well, what good is one day going to do? And how you going to know if it was effective and stuff like that? Me, I didn't go that deep into it. My thought process behind it was it's a start. It's not the end game. One thing black people in this society lack in some ways that are some significant, is unity. And so anything that we can do collectively as a group um, around politics or economics is a good thing, in my opinion. So if we could organize one day, what's to say, you know, we couldn't do it another day or a week, or you know, I'm just slow to criticize a show of unity. And Al Sharpton, I'm no fan of his. If you know, I say it here publicly. If I get into any kind of jam, don't call him to speak for me about it. I'll be okay on my own. I don't mess with Al. To the best of my knowledge, Al has been a registered informant for decades. Um, from what I know about the Tawana Brawley cases, way back in the '80s when he came onto the national scene, he was problematic in getting the outcome that Tawana Brawley and her family maybe needed. I know Alton Maddox, who recently transitioned, he called himself the attorney at war, was involved with Sharpton on that case, and after that, they became estranged, or they didn't run together the way they did um, before that case all came down like it did. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it was a young black lady named Tawana Brawley who was alleged to have been sexually assaulted by some members of the New York Police Department, if I'm not mistaken. But you can look it up on Google and get up to speed on that. But I don't mess with Al. Al is an ambulance chaser to me, an opportunist, which all of them are. But he's a politician, but he hides behind the cloth, and a lot of them do. I just be frank. I don't trust a lot of men of the cloth, because a lot of times that cloth is to hide their true self, and I guess that's with any occupation or title. But if you're doing it in the name of God, I hope you go to a special level of hell when you transition, because that's wolves in sheep's clothing. That's it. In by definition, right? So yeah, I don't mess with Al, but I look past that. And then other people said that it was I don't know the guy's name. It was a white guy named Schwartz or something like that. But you know, I used an analogy, or I tried to draw a correlation between this and the March on Washington. Malcolm X gave a speech, and I think it was the message to the grassroots, where he said he talked about how the March on Washington was originally supposed to be a day of civil disobedience, where they went in and laid on the runway so planes couldn't land and disrupted, everyday activities in the city of Washington, D.C. And when I think it was JFK at the time got wind of it, he tried to put the less threatening arm of the movement in at the head of it. you know, I think Malcolm said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, what when he went to the black leaders that he went to, and I'm sure he was including Dr. King, he said, you need to stop it. And they said, and you know, the black leader said, we can't stop it because we didn't start it. He said, well, if you're not at the front of it, I'm gonna put you at the front of it. So it went from a nightmare for DC to a dream for us. And you know, dreams only happen when you sleep. So you could metaphorically, you could say that they did that to make sure we stayed asleep. You know, and still in all, that's not to knock the March on Washington, but um, that's just to say that the March on Washington uh, at the grassroots level was not what it ended up being. And in that same way, if a white man started this boycott, black people could take it as their own, because you can name a number of things that we've started and other groups have taken as their own. So you know, with propaganda, if propaganda can be used against you, you can use it. You can, any weapon that can be used on you can be used on the person that used it on you. And I could have said that better, but I hope you get the gist. Um, you know, any kind of new weapon, you only have an advantage the first time, because after that, after you use it, the person you use it on is going to try to figure out, whoever's left is going to try to figure out how to make it and use it on back against you. You know, that's why only one atom bomb has been dropped, or nuclear bomb has been dropped, because America had it first. And so they used it because they knew no one else had it at the time. And then after everyone else had it, we haven't seen it used in that way since. So it's just something to think about. Yeah. So the boycott that happened. Then nationally, there was a farce this week by the current administration, where they invited the leader of a war country that's currently engaged in war with Russia to the White House, to the Oval Office, and they gave a performance, much like we've seen on episodes of The Apprentice. Um, the vice president and president, they put on quite a performance. I'll say it that way. And you know, it was just interesting to me to see the commentary on it. It was like the people that are pro this administration were like, yeah, that's aggressive. I love seeing that. And the people that were not that are not in favor of this current administration were saying that it looked horrible and they acted like children. And you know, I'm not going to go in too deep into it. I kind of have tried to refrain. That's why it's been hard for me to do podcast episodes, because this was largely, you know, my topics are largely around politics. But with the current state, I can't really devote a lot of energy to that. So, yeah, I just had to take a step back. But yeah, it was ridiculous, and you know what I saw of it. If you really listen to what Vladimir Zelensky was saying, um, you know, with the ridiculous questions he was being asked, and the manner they were being asked in, and the way, you know, that the people in the room with him were acting. You know, I think he answered the questions, but people don't even listen. They're just watching. You know, they just cheering for their side, and it's. I understand that we have two political parties, a two political party system, and you know, whichever party you're affiliated with, you want to win. But ultimately, um, we all, well, America's a centrist country, but it seems as the fringes keep winning. But you know, ultimately, we all have common needs and should have common goals. But you know, it doesn't look like certain people's goals and interests are, you know, a priority. I say it that way. So yeah, and the topic, well, the title of this week episode was "If You Can Convince," and so that's largely what I wanted to, be the basis of what I talked about tonight. So Lyndon B. Johnson, who was the president after John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963, I believe. So he took over and he was responsible for signing the Civil Rights Act. I think Kennedy might have signed the Voting Rights Act, but fact check me on that. I'm close, but I might be a little off. So when Kennedy was assassinated in '63, Lyndon Johnson took over and passed the Civil Rights Act. And one of the things he said was by signing that, he was guaranteeing that a Democrat wouldn't win the South for the next 100 years or something like that, which is probably true. It's, if you look at it, I don't think the South is largely red. We saw that in this last presidential election. But he said, if you can convince, this is a quote, if you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you. So I'm gonna read that again. This is Lyndon B. Johnson, former president, vice president, and president of the United States. He said, if you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you. So that being said, it seems as if some of the MAGA muskrats, whatever you want to call them, are starting to cry. And I knew this was going to happen. And it's fascinating to me that they, voted for this, voted for what we have, and now they're starting to feel the pain. And that's the only time that you really can convince somebody that believes something strongly that what they believe is not true. It's when they actually feel it themselves. And so I'm gonna share. Hold on, share screen. Yeah, I'm gonna share this guy. Share.
I was a Trump supporter. When he talks about government waste and all that, yes, I'm behind it. I believe there is a lot of stuff in the government that needs fixing, and that's part of the reason why I actually wanted to work for the government, actually, to help change the things that are wrong in the world. And I thought that someone with like his business acumen would have come in with a fine-tooth comb and actually found it, instead of coming in with a wrecking ball and destroying people's lives for no reason.
Okay, let me stop sharing. So you hear what he said there? He said, where's my mouse? So he said, he knows that the government has waste, and that's true, it does. That's one of the reasons why we have what we have now, because they're not, I dare say it, because somebody say, see, you said, they're not wrong about it. Well, what they are saying is based in truth. Now, there's a lot of misinformation that is wrapped around that truth, but we all know that the government wastes money. The government, is a bureaucracy, and by definition, a bureaucracy does not they don't handle administration well. So if you don't handle administration well, you're going to have misreporting of resources, and what you normally come to find is the money went where it should, but it wasn't being tracked, so it takes it a while for you to find it. There's been, I know in the Iraq war, they airdropped some money and they couldn't find it, and it was not a small amount. I can't remember how much, but the government is not a business in the traditional sense. So It does not exist to make a profit. It exists to protect and provide resources to its citizens. So, any service that the government offers is not designed to make money. And that's not to say that it shouldn't generate enough to sustain itself, but that just means the end goal is not to make as much profit as you can as it is with a traditional company. A traditional company only wants to make profit, and as much profit as they can as fast as they can. The government, not so much. But this guy, he said, you know, I didn't expect him just to come in and blow everything up, come in with a wrecking ball and destroy people's lives. What he meant was destroy my life, and that's the case for all of the MAGA. They, for some reason, are under the impression that it's going to happen to the other guy, and that goes back to the quote by Lyndon B. Johnson. How they have been duped is they think that they are better than the brown people, and I'm really talking about the black people, but I'll say brown. They have been led to believe, and if you want an example of how it manifests itself, the Trump presidency and re-election is largely because of the Barack Obama election and re-election. Barack Obama terrified a large segment of white America because up until that time, they did not think that there was a person of African descent. And I say African descent, his father was an African Kenyan. His mother was an American. So he is of African descent, but he's also of European descent, but he physically looks, and that's all that really matters, like a black man. So for all intents and purposes, in this country, he is a black man. And they didn't think that a black man could achieve and perform at that level in that way. They didn't think he could be articulate, intelligent, and handle the administrative and legislative duties of the presidency because he was black. They didn't think a black person could do that. That terrified them because they had evidence that what they had been led to believe was incorrect. And what you saw happen was a reaction or a regression due to that. So Dr. Amos Wilson teaches us that periods of progress are often followed by periods of regression. The Civil War and the Reconstruction and the period directly following the Reconstruction are a great example. Reconstruction was relatively speaking, in the history of this country, one of the better times for black people in America, from 1865 until 1877, with the election of Rutherford B. Hayes and the Great Compromise of 1877. Look that up and see what happened there, and what it led to, and why black people started getting the hell out of the South immediately following that. So slaves are freed in 1865. Reconstruction starts. They pass the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. Black people start being elected to political offices all over the South where they had been former slaves. And that lasted up until 1877, when what I consider the end of Reconstruction, when Reconstruction ended with the Hayes-Tilden Compromise. So now we're in a period of regression, and it's gonna be a bumpy 3 years, 4 years, however many. Don't know what's gonna happen with the terms. Technically, you can only run twice, but we know there was a comment made that if you voted this time, you wouldn't need to vote again, and nobody really got clarity on what was meant by that. And it was him, the current office holders just being himself. We didn't ask any questions. We also didn't ask any questions. They came out and said they're gonna get rid of birthright citizenship. Nobody said anything. Like, you know, this is the other thing I heard, that Steve Bannon, I think it was, or somebody said that, the strategy was just to flood the zone, just to, shock and awe, just keep throwing stuff into the 24-hour news cycle that just makes, it's just like a hamster on a wheel, and you got to keep going faster and faster because they're throwing more and more at it. You know what I mean? So they just saying stuff. But the birthright citizenship issue is important. And with all the noise, I try, like, I stay away from it, and I follow people on social media just to get um, headlines and blips. But so birthright citizenship means that if you're born in this country, you are a citizen of this country. And the Bama said that we're going to get rid of birthright citizenship. Okay, the hardcore racists thought that that meant Hispanics, because it's really largely about Hispanics. When they talk about deportation, they're not talking about deporting any Canadians or Europeans, or I don't even know if they're talking about Indians. Unless they mistake an Indian for a Mexican, they might scoop them up and then be like, "Oh, my bad." But they're really talking about Hispanics. So they think that they're just removing birthright citizenship for people of Hispanic descent that have come here and had children, but you can't do it that way. This has already been this was already this reached the Supreme Court back with a Chinese man. I was just listening to a podcast I listened to called Throughline on NPR, talking about birthright citizenship, and it was a Chinese man, a man of Chinese descent. He was born in San Francisco. His parents immigrated from China to San Francisco in the 19th century, I think, I think in the 19th century. And when they got here, he was born, so he was a citizen by birth. But there were serious anti-Chinese laws. They even had They had a Chinese Exclusion Act, because they didn't want Chinese laborers coming into this country at one period in America. And he had to go back to China to find a wife. But when he came back, they wouldn't let him back in because they said he was not a citizen. And he said he was because he was born in San Francisco. And so he had to stay on a ship in the port of San Francisco for a year while this case was tried. And I would say his name, but I can't remember. I think it was one. I'm gonna mess it up. But look it up. And you say, how can you look it up if you ain't give me a name? I know I'm falling down the job. But anyway, but what they found was that if they said he wasn't a citizen by birth, then all of the European immigrants that came in and had children would also not be. So the question is, with birthright citizenship, if you take it away for Hispanics, what makes any of us an American? So it came about through the 14th Amendment, I think, naturalized birth. I think it was the 14th. It's one of the Reconstruction Amendments. I think it was the 14th. And it was amended to the Constitution to give former slaves citizenship. So that and he said we're gonna eliminate it. Nobody said nothing. Yeah, do it. That's scary. Like, we don't even know. Like, yeah, we don't even know what we co-signing, man. And I don't get it, but whatever. The people have spoken. This is what we wanted, right? So we have to deal with it. This is the people majority rules. So yeah, and Doge and Leon, he went on stage with a big chainsaw, because he's cutting everything and cutting people's head, not cutting people's heads off, but he went on stage with a chainsaw, which is doesn't sit right with me when a person who's never had to work for their life gets off on firing people. I've had to fire people in my professional life, and I didn't like it. Um, even though it may or may not, well, even though it may have been justified, even though they had it coming, it still wasn't an enjoyable experience. So, because you're talking about people's livelihood, and as a human, why would you ever celebrate somebody's, you know, lot losing their livelihood? Um, that's disgusting to me. But they said that they had saved all this money. It's later been reported that they have to recalculate, and they had grossly overstated what they've saved. I still haven't seen any hard numbers, but not to say that they're not out there. But I noticed that I saw a press release yesterday. Today is the 2nd of March. Saw a press release from March 1st where Marco Rubio said we were sending $4 billion um, in military aid to Israel. So we're looking to cut. We're looking to cut. Justify that. Why are we sending $4 billion to Israel? Is that an expense that we can cut? How about let's cut out all foreign aid? You told Zelensky he should be thankful, and let's cut it all out. I don't care about a beef between Ukraine and Russia. That's a European problem that requires a European solution. I don't have nothing to do with that. I'm worried about what's going on in this country and how the resources are being allocated to my people, the Nubians. So, you can cut it all off if you're really serious. Cut it all off. But, so you're talking about cutting, but you're sending $4 billion out the door. Make it make sense. So, that's basically what I had tonight. Oh, DEI. There's been a lot of talk about DEI. I talked about this book before. It's called When Affirmative Action Was White. It's by Ira Katz Nelson. Can't see the name. By Ira Katz Nelson. And it tells you in this book that all of the social programs that that have been instituted and implemented in America have never been specifically. There's never been a policy specifically for the African American community. Any programs that the African American community have taken part in or participated in have been because they met the requirements to qualify, not because somebody said the black people are suffering, let's give them something. No, they said the white people are suffering and they're going to revolt. So let's give them something. And by the way, the black people qualify too, so we got to give them something. But even in doing that, it goes on to tell you, that the programs were not fully taken advantage of by the African American community because they had to be administered by the states and the racist people. Well, the racist people in the states and the federal government made sure that black people couldn't get as much as white people got. Like they made sure for unemployment insurance, as an example, in the South, well, people that worked in the field and people that were maids and butlers didn't qualify for unemployment insurance. And almost 85% of black people in the South occupied those jobs. When they did the GI Bill, black people couldn't take advantage of the GI Bill in the way that white people could because nobody would sell them homes in certain places, and they couldn't go to certain schools, trade schools or schools and universities. That's why the HBCU system came to be, because black people could not go to predominantly white institutions. My mother-in-law, she graduated from Fisk University and wanted to go to grad school. She couldn't go to grad school anywhere in the South. And what they did was the schools in the South were given the money by the federal government, but they would pay a school in the North or Midwest to accept them because they couldn't go to school there. It's always been about them not wanting their children to go to school with black children. That's why they went to the suburbs, 30 years ago. White flight, they got the hell out of the city. Then we get George Bush with the faith-based initiative, and he gave all this money to these schools, these churches, and they started these charter schools so the white people could then live in the city and still not have to worry about their children going to school with our children. It's not changed. It's not changed. Schools are more segregated now than they ever were, even though we had Brown versus Board of Education. So, just pay attention. That's all I can say. Pay attention, and the AI and video augmentation and all this stuff is getting better and better. So it's a good time to learn a couple of words. Add a couple of words to your toolbox. Primary and secondary sources. Understand what primary and secondary sources are. Understand when you see a headline, if it's a news organization you ain't never heard of, go check out what the news organization is before you start sharing it, because it's a lot of misinformation. And we know from the 2016 presidential election, all of the intelligence agencies agreed that Russia interfered in the election. And how did they interfere? By using social media. They went in and created these fake profiles. They created these pro-black for us, for the black community, seemingly pro-black profiles, and they put all this misinformation in it, and before you know it, people were picking it up and sharing it, and it was going around. You know what they say about a lie traveling halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on. We love stuff that's salacious and sensational, so we gravitate to that, and we share that. And this is the other thing: the algorithm picks up on whether you are more or less susceptible to misinformation, and it'll push it to you so that you can push it to somebody else if they know that you'll go for it. So you can fight back, just don't click on it. Don't click on it, don't share it. We gotta resist. This is Star Wars, and we Luke in the crew. So we gotta fly into the Death Star and try to blow it up. Not literally. So I don't want no black vans pulling up. We just gotta toe the line. All right. Well, that's all I got for tonight. I hope it has been informative and I didn't bore you too much. I'm about to watch Eyes on the Prize 3 on Max. I also watched this week A 0 Day with Robert De Niro and Angela Bassett on Netflix. It was awesome. Little scary too. But yeah. Y'all have a good week, and I'll be back with you next week. Peace. Cleese. Gone.